We all know that to be successful in any business, agility and adaptation is key. We must have the capacity to change along with our ever-changing world. If you'll bear with me through a little bit of techie jargon, I want to look at a timeline of internet marketing in the real estate industry. Fortunately, the terminology is pretty simple. Web 1.0, Web 2.0, and Web 3.0. Web 2.0 is a term coined by Darcy DiNucci in her article Fragmented Future in 1999. I'm just springboarding off of that concept to help explain a long-term view of the progression of internet-based real estate marketing and how it affects us today. It's important to note that these terms may sound like they suggest a progressive global update to the whole internet, but that's not the case. It's more about a slow migration over time as technology advances. There are relevant modern websites that still apply the principles of Web 1.0 and don't need to utilize the newer strategies. This is where we'll start. Web 1.0. This really defines the beginning of the internet. Like many others at the time, agents started making websites that featured their contact information, pictures, and frequently asked questions. These websites were simple, static pages, and they didn't change unless the author of the site decided to change it. But the hallmark of Web 1.0 is the ability to search. For the first time, home buyers and sellers were able to use search engines to find real estate agents. This sounds like a fairly mundane feature now, but this represented a fundamental shift in how agents were accessed. You could now find a real estate agent without memorizing a billboard or hunting through Yellow Page ads. It's a pretty basic, well-known concept, and it's the foundation that leads us to Web 2.0. Web 2.0. Web 2.0 took the world by storm and continues to do so. The defining phrase in this instance is user-generated content. As opposed to the web pages in Web 1.0, the content on these sites is constantly changing based on the input from its visitors or users. In Web 1.0, the user simply viewed or consumed content provided by the author. Now in Web 2.0, the user consumes and creates the content. Take Facebook as an example. The content you read on your news feed is not provided by Facebook, but instead it's provided by other users just like you. Everyone on Facebook consumes content and also creates content. In order to create content, you obviously are required to have a profile. Social networking changed the way we operate on the internet. When it comes to the real estate industry, we see an early focus on reviews and comparisons. It reminds me of HomeGain's aptly named Find and Compare Realtors campaign. It was successful because it harnessed this sentiment to create a community based on reviewing real estate agents. More recently, Web 2.0 impacted individual real estate agents, but it manifested in a way that's trickier to see. Big players in the market like Zillow and Trulia developed their sites and filled them with content provided by users. However, the content is only provided by one small segment of their users. Those users are real estate agents, and the content is your listings. The real estate industry ended up in a situation where agents freely provide content for these sites. That content generates massive amounts of web traffic. Then, unfortunately, agents are required to pay to get access to the resulting traffic and leads. That seems to be a pretty touchy subject, so I'll leave it alone at this point. The next step is much newer and seems to be just gaining ground in the real estate industry. Web 3.0. Web 3.0 is defined by strategic targeting using big data and the user's behavior. The intricacies of this are pretty complicated, but you've seen the results when you surf the internet already. For instance, if you visit Staples.com to look at a bookshelf, you'll likely see banner ads for Staples.com, and likely that specific bookshelf throughout the next several days on completely different sites that seemingly have nothing to do with Staples.com. That's a very transparent example of Web 3.0. In many cases, sites will make logical deductions. In that instance, you may see banner ads for something else in the kitchen, like an oven or a microwave, simply because you viewed a refrigerator. It gets even more interesting when we start predicting behavior. This same Web 3.0 concept applies in the real estate market. We can get home buyer and home valuation leads earlier because we can market to them based on statistical averages. Here's an example. According to the National Association of Realtors, the average home seller has lived in their home around 9 years. Using that kind of information and cross-referencing other factors, a homeowner who happened to be 8 or 9 years out from buying their home may start seeing home valuation banner ads on their favorite news site. The key here is that we suggest an action the user is likely to take even before they're quite aware of it. The result of this type of strategic marketing is what you might find most interesting and probably what is currently affecting you the most. If you look at this homeowner as an example, you can see that over the course of Web 1, 2, and 3.0, we're accessing them earlier and earlier in their home selling process. In Web 1.0, we don't even know about this homeowner until they're literally searching for a real estate agent. In Web 2.0, we know earlier than that because the homeowner has to join the site or create a profile in order to compare the agents. This profile is presented as a lead to agents who contact the seller. In Web 3.0, we access the homeowner even earlier as we use predictive marketing strategies to suggest options that may not even be weighing heavily on the homeowner's mind. Let's take a look at our common marketing funnel. We all know it well, I'm sure. With each iteration of this Web 0.0 theory, we see our funnel expand upward and outward in order to catch the future home buyers and sellers that we generate from Web 2.0 and 3.0 marketing strategies. So we've taken our original funnel and expanded it to get access to these future buyers and sellers long before we would have in the past. It seems that advancements in technology have opened a sort of Pandora's box that now requires agents to compete earlier and earlier to get leads into their funnel. As I mentioned earlier, each of these Web 0.0 sections are relevant today. For a real estate agent to have the most robust and competitive marketing strategy, they need to be procuring clients from each of these sections. Unfortunately for real estate agents, this means that these future buyers and sellers must stay in our funnel longer and longer. It makes the leads appear to be lower in quality, but in reality, it's not as much the quality as much as it is the extended time we have to pay to keep them in our funnel. Just because we find out about these buyers and sellers sooner does not mean that they are going to actually buy or sell sooner. We still have to wait. This is where we must understand and adapt to that changing climate in online real estate marketing. This is also where we see zBuyer's greatest competitive advantage. zBuyer brings you home sellers motivated by outside forces that land much closer to the bottom or the end of your funnel and much closer to completing an actual real estate transaction. Far too often we hear from agents with the notion that there are only 2 types of leads available online, and those are home valuation and home buyer leads. This is simply wrong. There are currently 3 main entry points for any online real estate leads. 1 would be home buyers browsing homes for sale online. 2 would be home sellers curious about the value of their home. And the third option would be home sellers that are motivated by an outside force to sell their home, and those are fast home selling leads. Though zBuyer has adapted in order to bring you home buyers and sellers from many Web 2.0 and 3.0 techniques, we have maintained and grown our original base of sell my house fast type leads. The true advantage with zBuyer leads is very simple. Our sellers are not just motivated to sell, but they are motivated by selling. If you ask most typical leads why they are selling their home, they'll tell you, I'm buying a home and I need to sell my current one. But if you ask a zBuyer lead the same question, they'll come back with a different type of response based on the outside force motivating them to sell. Anything from relocating to needing cash or pending bank foreclosure, downsizing or upgrading homes, financial problems, inheritance, the list goes on. This takes us to the next logical question, and without any hesitation, I can tell you it's the most common question I hear. Where do you get your leads? Inevitably, any answer I provide sounds like I'm dodging the question. I'm not. I can't tell you where we get our leads, because we get our leads from everywhere. We have over 2,600 different online marketing campaigns, and many of those are affiliate networks that then have hundreds of sub-campaigns underneath of them. I can list out types like pay-per-click, email marketing, search engine optimization, and phone calls. Then I can toss in some other options like contextual marketing and media buys to make it sound advanced and confusing. But the bottom line is simple. It's taken us over a decade to establish long-term, trusted relationships with reliable sources of traffic. And we spent that time weeding through thousands of fly-by-night rip-off artists that provide bogus traffic. It's taken a long time, but we're here, and we'd like to show you what we can do. zBuyer is bringing you home sellers that are landing much closer to the end of this ever-growing funnel. If you don't have zBuyer, you're missing a whole section of home sellers that aren't going to trickle through your home valuation or buyer leads. We have home sellers. You need home sellers. Let's do business.